All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Skill Up series session. My name is Emily Sprenger. I'm a graduate learning specialist in the Graduate Study Support Center, and I am thrilled to have Dr. Carrie Hall come back to present today Success Strategies for First Generation Doctoral Learners. Just a couple of very brief housekeeping items before we get started. We are in a meeting format. So I would like to ask that you remain muted unless called upon, just for the best flow of the presentation. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to raise your hand or pose those in the Q&A function of your Zoom. You can also pop it in the chat. I will keep an eye on that. We are recording today's session. I will absolutely send the recorded session to all of the registered participants for this session. And we will, as always, post it in our Graduate Studies Support Center Skill Up page and our YouTube channel. So Dr. Carrie Hall is not only an alum of NCU, now NU, but she is one of our fabulous assistant part-time professors here. And truly, her candid, humble quality and attention to our students and our needs at this university is really something to be valued. And we truly do appreciate you, Dr. Hall, and your expertise. So without any further ado, I will pass this over to you to get us started for today.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to say thank you all for coming out today. Welcome. I know that there's another meeting going on with the university, lots of things going on. So we are going to jump right in. As Emily has done a wonderful introduction, and also I appreciate her as well, and the support team in the Graduate Studies Support Center. So I'm just excited to be with you today. This topic, I believe, is not discussed enough. So before we jump in, though, I want to give you a little bit of information about my dissertation. I want to just make some disclaimers, and then we'll go ahead and start moving along through the presentation. My dissertation, just so you know, it was a qualitative dissertation in marriage and family therapy. I had a medical family therapy specialization that was, as Emily said, completed at Legacy NCU. So the information that I share with you today, this is going to be based on my personal experience, and it may or may not be applicable to you. I always like to make sure that you know that. This topic that I'm speaking of today, first generation doctoral learners, I am one. So again, that is why this is near and dear to my heart. And we're going to be doing a different approach today. So this is my disclaimer. So if you're looking for specific hands-on techniques as far as research or writing tips, you'll be able to find that information in other webinars in the Graduate Study Support Center. But this one today is going to focus more on the intangible barriers to completion that are often seen in those who are blazing a trail and you just don't have a roadmap. So been there, done that, and so excited to be with you all today to help you all through that. With that being said, we're going to talk about attrition, the disconnect between faculty and students, first generation differences, so the differences between first generation and second and further generations, trailblazing, liminality, imposter syndrome, the fear of failure and success, the areABD and ambiguous loss, and then discuss how we're going to conclude with overcoming barriers. So really, you have to kind of stay with me all the way to the end if you want to get those hands-on specific technique, walk away, key takeaway things that you can kind of hold on to and actually apply, because that's going to come towards the end. So let's look at some stats. If you've attended any of my prior webinars, you may recognize this slide. It's familiar. I made some minor changes to it, but overall it's still applicable to this presentation. And so it's really a good starting base because we really need to know where we're starting from. So this is based on research literature where we found out that 50% of doctoral learners overall do not complete the doctoral degree. This was data done by Casuto in 2013. 40 to 50% of doctoral learners in brick and mortar don't complete. Lim et al. In 2019 gave us that documentation. And then there were several that gave us documentation on the attrition rates being 10 to 20% higher for online than brick and mortar doctoral learners, which equates to approximately 40 to 70% attrition across programs. And so we found that out with Terrell, Snyder, and Dringas in 2009, and also with Ames, Berman, and Castile in 2018. For legacy NCU NU attrition is 20%. Now, I know that this is true for the marriage and family therapy program and that doctoral learners, I'm assuming, and I apologize, I was trying to get the stats for the other programs, but I kind of, ran out of time before I realized that, this is only my program. I should have looked ahead. So we all make mistakes, apologize for that. But we're 20%. What I'm interested in being in the marriage and family therapy department is I want to make sure that we capture that other 20%, that ABD. There are some people that are just leaving the program too soon that I believe that we could help them to get that doctoral degree. So again, my interest for today. Our president, Mark Milliron, he made the comment in the February community meeting that in order to serve our students, we have to see our students. It was so just heartwarming for me to hear him say that, because I had actually already started working on this topic a few weeks prior to him making that statement. So when he made that statement, I said, great, I'm on the right page. I'm doing the right thing. This is not just me that's realizing the importance of seeing our students, understanding the mental health aspect of the ABD students and that doctoral process. That's just something that, again, it's just not discussed enough. It's not likely a conversation that you're having with your committee members. And so as a first generation Trailblazer and alumni, I know firsthand what it takes to persevere and make it through the process at this particular university. So I personally feel that that qualifies me to be an expert and help you through this process as well. So even though I may not be able to see all of your faces at one time on the Zoom screen, know that internally what I'm saying, I see you. I see you. You are seen, and hopefully you'll feel that through this presentation today. So right out front, let's, one of the things I do like to be is just an honest, transparent person. I think is very important. So let's put some things right out front. Oftentimes, students are ABD because there is a disconnect between students and faculty. So according to the research, and I want to make that clear that this is researched information as far as the disconnect between faculty and students. So, I think it's important because I haven't particularly done a study at our university. Might be interesting to find out where the disconnect is directly at our university, but that might be some further research for me. At this point, according to the research, which I do see how it can be applicable, is that the faculty are often focused on the academic requirements to complete the dissertation. So when a student is not submitting the work, then what comes into question from your committee is, what about their ability? Do they have the drive? Are they focused? Where's their motivation, their initiative? These are my concerns coming from the committee. The emotional, psychological, social, and cognitive requirements to complete the dissertation, those are often going unnoticed, and they're not being discussed between that candidate and that committee. So according to the student, they might be experiencing a myriad of experiences, and I listed some of them for you here. And as you can see, the only thing that the faculty and student likely agree on is the motivation, that there are barriers, to completing the dissertation when the motivation wanes. As a first generation doctoral learner, you're encountering differences that a second or beyond generational learner may not encounter. A first generation learner is considered, in my opinion, this is me, I'm saying this to you, I was told long before I started my PhD that I was a trailblazer, and I just didn't really see it. I knew I had been a lot of firsts in my lifetime, and I have blazed a lot of trails over the years, and I'm sure we can all swap war stories here if you're here as a first generation learner. But I want to kind of stay on task and stay focused. If you're interested in any of my further background, we can always discuss that at a later time when we get to the end. But for now, Trailblazers, first generation, your family line, what I'm speaking of when I mean first generation is those that do not have parents that have higher ed degrees. And I'm speaking of, they don't have a bachelor's degree, they don't have an associate degree, they don't have a master's nor a doctorate. You are literally the first to blaze all of those trails. And you've gotten to this point, you've come this far in your journey. So there are going to be times when family and friends, they don't understand your experience. They don't understand the emotional support that is needed for you to do what you're doing. Whereas with the second generational doctoral learner, excuse me, and beyond, they have some experience. They have somebody that has gone before them, and oftentimes they have a family expectation that they will pursue that degree and that they will succeed at that degree. A lot of second and beyond generational doctoral learners, it is somewhere in their family where they have been expected to go along this journey and do this process. So they have a different path that's already laid out. The first generation learners are often survivors. You're a person that you have had to survive. You have had to overcome obstacles. You've had to make your success happen for yourself. You haven't had the red carpet laid out for you. Nobody gave you a silver spoon. You know, all of those different, things that we could say. You've had to make it happen. And in many occasions, you've been that fake it till you make it kind of person. Like, I've just got to do what I can do in the meantime until I had a saying that I had to do what I had to do until I could get to where I wanted to go. And so a lot of times when you're a first generation learner and you're blazing a trail, that is exactly what you're doing. So you're pushing through this experience in a different way. The second and beyond doctoral learners, they've already had some familiarity with the academic world at this level. They've already seen or heard about the process through somebody else in the family. And so it makes it just a little bit easier. I'm not saying that, they don't have struggles. If you are a second generation, but what I'm saying is it's a very different path when someone has already laid out for you versus when you have to be the one to walk through the woods and chop down the trees yourself. That's where we're at. So trailblazing is not easy. As a trailblazer, you might not have family support. You might be surrounded by people who are working against your success, sometimes on purpose, and sometimes not on purpose, just simply because they just don't understand the process. They don't know why you're doing what you're doing. They don't understand what place that they're going to have in your life once you achieve those goals. What's that going to leave them? Because there's going to be a potential gap there that they're concerned about. So these friends and family, sometimes they're going to pull on your time, and they're going to make comments and say and do things that are going to add an emotional burden to you when you're trying to go through this process, whether it's done intentionally or unintentionally. And you have to work hard to overcome those types of barriers when they're in place. So when you're a trailblazer, you're trying to take care of your family, yourself, hold down a job, set aside time to, do your dissertation. You kind of feel like, okay, well, I did that when I was in my coursework, but that's where the struggle comes in. It's a whole different ball game in a dissertation phase than it is through the course completion phase as far as time management and how you're going through this process. So it's important that you make the time to write and to be consistent in your time. You have to really manage that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end when we talk about those barriers. I want to say to you that you likely got this far because of your ability, your drive, your focus, your motivation, and your initiative. All those things that your committee is questioning are all the things that got you here. You didn't get this far because you didn't have what it takes to go through it. So this is where I'm coming in today, is saying, well, then what's the holdup? Why are we not moving forward? So let's look at some things. This is where liminality comes in. So liminality is living between two worlds, or what some authors have referred to as a split life. So when it comes to doctoral learners, what's happening is one world is the academic world, and you're trying to transition to a scholar, and the other world is the former world of being a student. So there's a difference. When I got into the program, it took me a minute when I got to the dissertation phase to start calling myself a candidate instead of a student, because I had to realize, wow, I'm not a student anymore. I was a doctoral student all the way through comps. When I got through comps and dissertation hit, I'm now a doctoral candidate. So somewhere I have to go through this rite of passage. I have to transition. I have to think of myself differently. I have to elevate my thought and my mindset to push through this process. You're trying to better your life, increase your income, your quality of life, and those expectations that are surrounding you is that some people want you to stay where you are. And so it's like, I'm trying to grow, but you're trying to pull me back, and I'm just stuck in between these two worlds, because I want to still have relationship with friends and family and let them know that I'm the same person. I'm not trying to be somebody different or better or anything like that than, you know, who they are, I guess, holier than thou, as they say. You know, that's not my aim. I'm just trying to do some things to better my life, my position, that hopefully will make things better for future generations. So it's natural that you want to fit in and stay in your comfort zone. But in order to get out of ABD, you will have to move beyond that zone. You've got to move out of it, and you've got to move into a different zone if you're going to complete it. So transitioning from learner to expert, that's where you are. That was a conversation I did have with my committee. My committee let me know that, Carrie, you're the expert. And I'm like, wow, really? I'll keep looking at you guys. And there was a certain point in the journey where I had to transition and I had to switch, and I had to realize, okay, I'm the driver. And I have another another webinar about that. So I have some of my webinars listed at the end, so you can go to that, Drive to Thrive, if you want to know more about that. But I had to make that change and realize I'm the driver here. I have to choose to move myself towards that expert and not lean on my committee so much, but instead show my committee that I'm the driver, and that, hey, you know, this is where I want you to be. But when you're in that liminality, which is what we're talking about, there's that middle ground before you get there where some students feel lost. So this is where I want to talk about ABD and ambiguous laws. As we've discussed earlier, if you're a first generation doctoral learner, I don't need to question your commitment. I don't need to question your motivation. You got there because of it. So you are an overcomer. It takes a lot to blaze a trail and to be the first. So that's not the question. The question becomes, do you understand the personal responsibility and cognitive effort that it takes to get out of the ABD status. Or you have to ask yourself, am I just burned out by the time I got to the ABD status because of the fortitude that it took me to get here? Like I really was chopping down trees all the way through. And then especially when you come out of comps, I don't know about y'all, but when I came out of comps, I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, just I survived. I mean, that was a big, sigh of relief, because that was the thing that I was so worried and panicked about. We know that before comps, sometimes there's a late submission and a professor will work with you and say, okay, I'll give you an extension. I had a sick child, a sick husband, I was sick, something, went on, and you get an extension. But when I saw the writing on the wall for comps that this is a deadline, everything must be complete, there is no extension, it gets a little scary and a little rocky there. So coming out of comps was just, I made it. I made the deadline. I succeeded, and I was ready for the dissertation, excited. And so kind of just jumping right into that, but then it not flowing the way I thought. This is the point we look forward to. So there's an ambiguous loss that comes with this. Now, some of you might not be familiar with ambiguous loss because this is a therapeutic term. So it comes out of my field. So we'll talk about it a little bit. It's really just as the word implies. Basically, it's unclear. Again, we're back to that liminality. You're in that in-between state where you just can't identify a tangible way to move beyond your current position. So where it shows up in the dissertation phase is that we have to look at the two aspects of the loss. So there's the students who are writing and submitting, but you're just going through the motions. You really have not vested yourself in actually, driving this dissertation home. You're not realizing it, but your committee is seeing it. So this is why your committee keeps sending you revisions, and this is why your committee keeps saying, no, it's not ready yet. You need to put more into it, because you're not driving it home. What happens in our program, and I'll just speak to our program, the way we're set up, the courses are conditioned that if you complete the assignment, you make your submission, you get feedback, and you get your grade. And so you've been doing that for how many ever years you've been in your program. So then you get to the dissertation phase and you think it's the same thing. I'm just going to write, submit, they'll give me feedback, and I should be moving on. I should be to the next chapter. It does not work like that. So that mindset right there has to change. And there's an experience of this loss that's happening, especially for A students. Which I was, and it's you're just not getting it. Like, what is going on? I got A's in all of my classes. They said all of my writing was good. They told me that this was going to be a worthy research topic. I presented it to my different professors. So what is the problem now? And that's where we kind of go back to that disconnect between the faculty and the student, because the obvious thing or the immediate thing is to blame the committee. Well, I just don't have the right chair. Something must be wrong with my chair or my SME, or somebody there is really not supporting me. But that's not what's going on. So we have to, get in the habit of making sure that we're driving it. We're looking at that feedback and making those changes. Now, there's on the other side of that, there are those that are not submitting enough. So they're supposed to be receiving feedback, but they're not submitting enough. So they're not getting enough feedback and information. So what's happening is when you're waiting and you're not submitting anything, a draft, an outline, anything to let your committee know that you're breathing, that you're there, that you haven't given up on the process. When you're not doing that, then by the time you submit this version that you thought you wanted it to be so perfect, now you have large sections of your dissertation that has feedback on it. Now you have large amounts of edits, and now you are really just, it's like I'm bummed out. I don't get this. if you submit more regularly and more consistently, even like I said, even if it's an outline, even if it's I'm working on this part right now, even if it's, hey, look at this paragraph, if that's all you can generate, do something that lets your committee know that you are working on this, because then you can get smaller edits, and those smaller edits are more helpful to you than if you now have this whole document that you're trying to go through and it just looks so overwhelming. Imposter syndrome, let's talk about that next. So that's where that kind of comes in. The longer you spend in the ABD process, the more time you're going there, the ambiguous law sets in. You're just, it just feeds. That's what it does. It just feeds that loss, that liminality, that middle state. It just starts feeding into that imposter syndrome. And before you know it, there's this feeling of, am I even good enough? Am I really, gonna make it through this? Can I really achieve this? Can I really do this? Do I really have what it takes for this dissertation? And quite honestly, when you're dragging your feet, there is certain points where your committee's going to question that too. They're going to question, like I said earlier, go back to those other things. Do they have the drive? Do they have the motivation? The ability, what's going on? I'm trying to push this student, but they're not getting me, they're not adhering to my feedback. They're arguing with me as opposed to making the changes. They won't go and do the research I've recommended. Different things like that is going on. Now, I have to say, I thank God that was not my experience. And that's what makes me the expert to talk to you today. That was the experience, though, of some of my friends that were going through doctoral programs, and that some were going through at the same time as me, and some had gone through before me. So they were telling me about what they had gone through. I didn't have that experience because I had embraced feedback from day one in the NCU program. And so I urge you, if you haven't gotten to that point, that's going to be your number one thing, is to learn how to embrace that feedback. These people have the degree that you want, and they have the potential to sign off on that degree for you to get it. So why are you arguing with them? And don't let them hold you up in the process. Instead, try to hear what they're saying and see how it works for you. And sometimes that can be a frustrating process. It can be. And I'm gonna go off script here and just make an aside, because in my chapter 4, and I think I've spoke about this in another webinar as well, so I won't make this very long, but in my chapter 4, my chair was an art major, or minor or something. He had a background in art, and he was speaking to me in art terms. I didn't understand that. I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't understand this terminology. I did not know what he was talking about when I was trying to interpret this data. He was sending me articles. I started reading the articles, looking up the terms, trying to make it fit, trying to make it understand. And we just came to an impasse. So I am a certified mediator. So I know what an impasse is. We just came to an impasse because it was just like, I hear you, but I don't understand. I can't make it fit. This is not helping. So let's just have a conversation on another day. Let me go back to the drawing board. And he even encouraged me. He said, argue with me. Come on, let's just argue it out. And I said, no, because that's not going to help. I'm going to argue when I get to my defense. See, I already had that in mind. That's my chance to argue back and come back and say, hey, I'm defending this thing. But while I'm writing it, I don't need to argue. I need to go back and just ponder. That's what I need to do. I need to ponder what you're saying. I need to look at this again and just see if there's a different way I can spin it. Do you know that to this day, chapter 4 is my best chapter in my whole dissertation, in my opinion? because we went through that, and because I took the time to go back and try to figure out in my own way what he was saying, but still show me, because that was the time. That was the time to, this is how I need to present the data. This is how I need to show the data. This is what I need to do to explain what my research and what I'm presenting here. So when that happened, I just still, I thank him so much to this day, because I still just can't believe how beautifully chapter 4 came out. It's my best chapter. I look at some of my other writing and I go, this passed. You will probably do that too. After you finish that dissertation, you're going to look back at some of that stuff and go, wow, this made it through. But then there's pieces that you'll just be so proud of. And for me, that's my chapter 4. So I want to say to you, hello, Trailblazers out there. You got this. You are good enough. All the gifts, the talents, the abilities, everything that you need to move beyond this point is already on the inside of you. We just have to highlight it and pull it out. And that's why I really, again, wanted to be here today. So let's talk about how that happens. That this is a time when your past may haunt you. You are beginning to focus on these. So we're going to take this first side first, this fear of failure. People will start to focus on past failures. The more, corrections you have to make, the more feedback you get that you don't agree with, the more you can't figure out how to put this piece and that piece together, the more those past failures start to come up, negative words are revisited. And at this point, I know I probably, and maybe I have all the way through, sounded a little therapeutic in this process, but that may be because that's who I am. But again, it really is the mental health aspect of the dissertation process that needs more attention, because some of you, it has nothing to do with your writing ability. It has nothing to do with your research. It has nothing to do with your motivation. It has nothing to do even with the fact that you're trying to balance and juggle multiple things. It's the fact that there are situations and trials that you've already been through, and now that you're going through another difficult journey, those things are coming up and you're having to deal with it, but you're trying to push past it. You're in that liminality, and it is just something that you're dealing with. And you likely, some of you may, and I hope that you are going, oh, having an aha moment, like, I never even realized that was what was going on. Because again, that's the purpose of this webinar, to highlight these things for you so that you can realize that success is more than just the writing, the research. There's that cognitive part that happens. We have to discuss this if we want to lower the attrition rates, if we want to get some students out of the ABD status that really do have the potential to pull it out. The other side of the coin is fear of success. And for those of you naysayers out there, yes, it's real. I have it. That's exactly what I told my committee members. I let them know it's not, when they were asking me, Carrie, what is going on here? What do you think why are you stagnating at this point? Or where can we help you? How can we help you? What's going on? I let them know it's not the fear of failure. I'm not worried about that. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but it's the truth, because my mother was a very good mother that taught me, if you put your hand to the plow, you better be all in for it. If you're not in for it, you don't do anything halfway. So that's just been the way that I've worked throughout my lifetime. So the fear of success, it's real. And what happens when you see yourself succeeding is you'll start to procrastinate. You'll put those things off. You know you can do it. You know you'll be successful at it, but the problem is not knowing what's going to happen when you actually achieve that goal. As a married woman getting a PhD and my husband has a master's, and then people telling me, oh, your husband's going to leave you when you get that PhD because, you know, he has a master's degree and he's going to think a certain way, you know. And so like, wait a minute, we have a solid marriage. What are they talking about? You know, is this really going to happen? You know, it just, you know, and then those moments when he comes in and says, you're still working on this thing, Carrie, this dissertation is not your life. And I'm going, yes, it is. It's my life right now. You know, I have to do this. It all of these fears come up of, oh wow, is this gonna be, you know, a problem? Just to let you know, no, we're still trucking strong. 25 next month be 26 years. So he didn't leave when I finished. I finished in 2019. We're still together, trucking along, happily married. So but these success things, they come up and it gets scary, and it'll be a point where it's like, do I do it, do I not do it? You know, I don't know, you know, what's going to happen with this work here. So as you go through the ups and the downs, we've talked a lot about the struggles. Let's talk about the strengths. And this is what I want you all to do. I have been talking for a good 30 something minutes probably at this point. So what I want you to do is I want you to go in the chat and just list your greatest strength. List a strength of yours. Put it in the chat so somebody else can see it, because I just put a couple of things up there, but this list is not, it's not exhaustive. You know, you have all of these things to blaze a trail. If you're the first in your family to obtain a higher education doctoral degree, you possess these skills. You wouldn't be here today if you didn't. You know, there's many more skills that you possess. I want you to keep a list for yourself to keep yourself encouraged. So that's why I say, look in the chat. If you can't think of something, look in the chat. See if somebody else put a strength in there that you can say, oh, I didn't think about that, you know, and list that down for yourself. Okay, we're going to talk about the goofy stuff here. Play some inspiring music, music that reminds you of the fight and the ability to overcome. Yes, this is what I did. I played the Rocky theme, y'all. I did it. When I was right before, when I knew, okay, it's time to write and I have to sit down, I put on Rocky, you know, and that song, that music, it builds up. And so it was building me up to say, look, Rocky had to fight, girl. You have to fight through this. You can do this. And it was just that fighter music just encouraged me that I was in a fight, that I was going to win, that I was going to overcome. And I'm a witness here today. I made it through the fight. Rocky has some bruises. I had some bruises, but I made it through. So you might have to do some weird stuff. You know, that's just one of my weird idiosyncrasies and weird things I did. But whatever's in you, just find that thing that you can do to push through. And so now we're to the practical, and then I'm going to, after we get through these couple of practical tips, these are the 2 slides you'll want to keep with you and take with you. And as Emily said, it'll be in the Graduate Study Support Center if you need to go back to them. So don't worry about trying to, you know, take notes and write all these things down right now. But here's the practical. Number 1, it is really important that you communicate with your committee members. Let them know what you need and pursue it relentlessly. Do not wait on your committee to reach out to you to say, hey, haven't seen anything. Can you send me an outline? If they're reaching out to you, then you've taken too long. You've gone too far past where you need to be. You should be reaching out to your committee on a regular basis. And I can tell you, in the beginning, I thought I didn't want to call my chair because I thought that it would indicate incompetency if I'm calling too much or asking too many questions, and I wanted to show that I was not incompetent. Of course, first generation trailblazers, sometimes pride gets in the way, And then it does, because we've had to, use a lot of pride to get ourselves through. So sometimes it gets in a way where, I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to reach out. And especially also if you're a helper and you're used to being the one to give all that help, it's hard to receive that help and put yourself in that position. That was the best thing I did. When I hit my wall that my SME told me I would hit, that you're going to hit a wall. When I hit that wall, I felt I could not go any further, I called a friend of mine, and my friend said to me, and she was not, she was not in a PhD program or anything. She was just a supporter. She was one that was pushing me, that was saying, girl, you can do this. And I called her up and I said, well, I don't want to call my chair. He's going to think I'm incompetent. I'm crying on the phone. And she said, you need to call him, hang up with me and call him now. That was the best thing I did. I hung up, I called my chair, and that moment. And surprisingly, he was actually available. It was just a surprise. It was just kind of worked out timing wise that he was available. And I just told him where I was. I don't feel like I can do another thing, take another step. I want to quit. I know I can't, but I don't know how to move past this point. I don't know what's going on. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how I'm going to get this done. I don't know what to do. And it was just a moment that he took. Okay, where are you? Where are you right in this moment? What are you trying to work on? Okay, let's take a look. And that was what I needed. And before I knew it, I was off and running again. And then I felt so stupid because I said, why did I wait? This is what he's here for. Why did I not reach out? Why did I do it? He's been telling me all this time. You can also call me. It doesn't always have to be on Zoom. You can email me, questions, whatever. My SME offered that. You can email me questions or you can call. It doesn't always have to be on Zoom. And I was thinking every meeting had to be scheduled and on Zoom. And then once I realized, oh, wow, I can shoot an email and they respond and I can pick up the phone, because this one I don't think can be discussed over email. So I can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, when you have a moment, can you please call me back? Because I really think I can address this over the phone. And it happens. Lifesaver. We've already talked about this, not letting substantial amounts of time go by without submitting any work. I need to say this again, and I do say this, I think, in every webinar I've done. Submit your when they give you feedback, address that feedback in writing. To your committee. Make sure that you put some kind of template together or something that you put together to show them where you have addressed their feedback. Because if you're going in and you're just hitting accept all, changes on your document, and then you didn't properly review it, and then you go ahead and resubmit thinking, okay, well, I hit accept all, what's going to happen is they're going to do a whole new fresh reread. What happens when you reread something? Well, now that it's fresh again, now I have new ideas. Now you have more revisions. You have more edits. Because if you had just addressed that feedback that said, okay, go to paragraph here, page here. I addressed this comment you said, I addressed that comment. When you send all that back with them, oh, they just made it easy for me. So now they're not reading necessarily the whole document again so they can make a whole bunch of new changes. They're going through or looking at what they need to look at and seeing, now does this section flow together? Now is this section better? Now it's this, and you start moving a little bit faster. So that's just a really good tip that I like to keep mentioning. Block out your study time the same as you would a doctor appointment. A doctor appointment is medically necessary, so you make time for that. This degree, what does it mean to you? How necessary is it to you? If it's necessary, block out time to make sure to make it happen. And I'm on my last one here. I know I've taken more time with this than I planned, but I guess this is just really exciting. We have discussed that everyone is not going to be on board with you. So you have to find those people that will be on board with you. Find somebody in the community. If you don't have somebody in your family or you don't have a close friend, let me tell you who's a good person that'll be on board with you: a librarian. Make friends. Yeah, I see some yes, girl. I see some yes out there. Okay, I'm not by myself. Make friends with your librarian. Librarians are excited about education. They are excited about helping you, and tell me they will help and assist you. And that librarian will hold you up. They really will. So make friends with a librarian. Do not isolate yourself, because isolation brings fear and fear brings torment. Don't isolate yourself. Timely care is available. Take advantage of timely care. I didn't have that when I was going through. So you all are really blessed that we have this timely care, and it's available 24/7. All you have to do is reach out and, talk to timely care if you don't want to cry to your chair, which is probably what I would have did if I had timely care, then. But if writing is an issue, visit the Academic Success Center. They're not going to write the dissertation for you, but they will coach you on those areas of feedback that your committee members mentioned. Maybe it's something that you need help with writing wise, and in your writing style, that they can help coach you through. And then also please come again to the Graduate Studies Support Center so that you can access more webinars. Maybe blocking out time to study and to write. Put in a search term what you're looking for in the Graduate Studies Support Center. I looked up Lit Review in our formerly known as the CTL. When I was there, I looked up, okay, Lit Review, what's out there, what webinars are out there on Lit Reviews, because I'm struggling. And I watched webinars and I read books, ended up purchasing books, and one was from our faculty here, Dr. Bloomberg. I mean, many of you know her. Dr. Linda Bloomberg is excellent if you're doing a qualitative dissertation. And so I learned a lot from her and purchased her book and was able to, work through it and make things more manageable for myself. You're not wasting time. You didn't waste time coming here today. At least I hope and pray that you don't feel that way. You didn't waste time, because any energy that you give to learning, finding out more, doing what you can do to make it through the ABD process, is going to save you time in the long run. It's going to help you move a lot faster through your trouble spots. So with that being said, we are now to Q&A. And I really do apologize that I spoke, I think, a little bit longer than I normally do. But again, this is just so exciting to me that I get this opportunity.
Absolutely, Dr. Hull, thank you so much. Oh, geez, not a problem, really. If people do have questions, please let me know. Some students didn't know about timely care, so I did pop that in the chat. There is a link to you. It's a free resource to you as a student. So that was great to hear too. And then two things I took away before I jump into the Q&A. First of all, love the template idea. I'm taking that. This is what you said. This is what I changed. Here you can find it on this page. So let me know if there's more detail to that, because I love that. And then the other piece too, how you mentioned, yes, as a graduate student, I love the one-to-one teaching model. I have a lot of layers to my life, just like everybody else in this Zoom room. But isolation is a place where fear can come in. And so there's, aside from the resources of friending a librarian, utilizing the Academic Success Center, checking out our skill ups on the Graduate Studies Support Center, don't forget too about our alumni navigators. And there's also some power hour sessions as well too. So I'll pop that calendar link in the chat so you can take a look and peruse at what might work for your schedule as a student. But let me get to Q&A. Oh, the title of Dr. Linda Bloomberg's book. It is, I will go ahead.
It's on my shelf right here. I will grab it.
I was gonna say I have it too, but I've
Let me see. Hold on, wait a minute.
tucked it away. So
Wait,
sorry. Do you
no,
have it?
I grabbed the wrong one, not that one. Oh, I'm sorry. I have literally like every book on my shelf that I went through, and I thought I
Hmm.
had all my research ones together. Oh no, here it is.
You found
Here it
it? It's
is.
the
Yeah,
qualitative,
I have it. Yep.
the complete
This
road.
is the completing your qualitative dissertation, a roadmap from beginning to end.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And
So,
there are
and you can
also,
see there's tabs.
oh yeah.
I mean, yes, I grabbed my other qualitative book.
Thank you for that
So,
question. Any other questions that I know, right? What is the title of Dr. Carrie Hall's book? She's working on it. No, are you working on a book yet?
actually, you know what? I really have been thinking about. It's that time. I think it's time that I put a book together for doctoral students, because I just feel like there's a lot, again, there's a lot out there that's just, I don't feel like it's being discussed, or students don't have access to it, or get that hands-on with it. And so I need to put it out there.
Well, I can say that so many people have popped in the chat. Thank you so much for all of this information. Thank you for talking about some of the fears that we have, but also the positive affirmations and the strengths that we possess as trailblazers and doctoral students as a whole. Let me see here. Londa, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, my dear friend Emily, we are BFFs, so you know me very well because I make use of all the resources. But Dr.
Indeed.
Hall, this question is for you. I wanted to know at what point in your doctoral journey that you decided on your topic.
Okay, so that is in, I guess I should can I go back a slide? There we go. So there are the other webinars I have done, and you can go in those, and I kind of talk a little bit more about some different things. But I had a little bit of a journey where my topic was picked from day one of my dissertation process. I knew what I wanted to talk about. I wrote on it for the entire program. I was told by every professor except one that it was a worthy dissertation topic. And when I got to my committee and my dissertation phase, the one that did not agree with my topic was my SME. And so he refused to go forward until I could prove that it was research worthy. And it took me about 2 weeks to try to meet with the committee and get them and prove and show that it was research worthy. And when that didn't happen, I got scared, because there was, only the 8 weeks, and I didn't want to waste time. So I pivoted based on that. Yep.
Well,
And
the
I had to
reason
go
why
back into the literature. So you can find actually that the tips and tricks for a successful chapter 1 is where I definitely talk about the gaps in the literature and how you can go back and find that gap in the literature that then develops that topic. Because until you do that, you'll be stuck.
Well, the reason why I asked that question is because I'm early on in the program. I'm on my 4th course starting this week. And I've been thinking about a topic since I started the program in December. So am I too early on to think about the topic? Because that's pretty much, I have expounded on it several times, but I thought about it before I started the program.
You're not too early to think about the topic, but I will say this. Just realize that once you get to that dissertation phase with your chair and your SME, you have to find the gap in literature. It can't just be a topic that, oh, I'm just interested in this. And that's what I did initially. Oh, I'm just interested in this. And yes, I had lots of literature, but that was the problem with my topic, is it had been overdone. And I really didn't find the gap. So that's why I said, and then a lot of students, which I was that one, didn't understand what they meant by the gap in literature. I thought I did, but I really fully didn't until I went through the process of finding that gap. And like I said, that's in my tips and tricks for a successful chapter 1. Will tell you how to go through and find that gap.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Hall.
Absolutely. And I know we're at time. I just want to say, Dr. Hall, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and to share that your awesome motivation pieces with us, the tips for success as first generation trailblazers. We are so grateful. I know that I took away a few things from this session as well too. I'm going to put in my tool belt for in the future, and I hope the rest of our participants did as well. So Dr. Hall, any last, I guess, expressions before we close out for the day?
I just want to thank you all for coming, and you may not realize it, but you all support me and energize me when you come to the webinars, because it just lets me know that, you know, I'm in the right place doing the right things, and you know, hopefully you all have been blessed by it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. And until the next time, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Take care.
Bye-bye.